Texas Senator Ted Cruz is one of the most disliked men in Washington, something he's more than happy to emphasize on the campaign trail. Here to discuss the candidate's bad boy in the Senate strategy is WSJ's national politics reporter, Janet Hook. Janet, great to see you. How are you down there in D.C.?
Just great. Great to be on with you.
Great. So first, it seems like Cruz's strategy is working. He's now at the top of the polls in Iowa. He's leading Trump by about 3 points in the Real Clear Politics average, and he's also gained ground nationally. Here are some of the numbers. How has Cruz used his bad reputation on Capitol Hill to gain support outside of Washington?
Well, it's the political climate this year in the 2016 presidential race is just riddled with hostility towards Washington. Voters are very disillusioned, especially among Republicans and conservatives. Voters are very disillusioned with the way things are going in Washington. So to say, I'm not part of it is a very powerful message. That's part of the reason why Donald Trump is doing so well as well.
Yeah, the anti-establishment anger that seems like they're really tapping into. I want to show some of these posters that Ted Cruz is selling because they really highlight his message. He's got this straight out of Congress poster that claims he is the establishment's most feared conservative. And then he's got a poster that says blacklisted and loving it. And it shows him with tattoos and kind of in this bad boy image. How are these posters and how is this strategy appealing to his ultra-conservative base?
Well, I think it sends a very powerful message. His message is not just that I'm against the establishment, but that I've been in the belly of the beast, that I've been in the Senate and stood up to my party leaders. And so I think that's the thing that taps into a feeling among a lot of conservatives that the party leaders, the Republican leadership of Congress, hasn't been tough enough, hasn't been conservative enough, and they see Ted Cruz as the guy who's been calling them out on it. Now, the people who aren't so crazy about him in the Senate say, well, he's all talk and no action. He doesn't do anything. He just stands up and mouths off. And so that's why there's kind of this dual critique of him. There are plenty of conservatives in the Senate who don't think much of Cruz.
Yeah, and you highlighted in your piece the difference in views among very conservative voters. More than 80% view him positively. And swing voters who don't view him very positively, only about 26% say they view Ted Cruz positively. What does that divide mean for him down the line?
Well, so what it means is that he probably has a pretty strong path to gaining in the fight for the Republican Party nomination. It's less clear how he would do in the general election, which is a big reason why a lot of Republican leaders and kind of more mainstream establishment Republicans are concerned, is that he may be strong enough to win the nomination, but then that the party will get wiped out in the general election because his appeal doesn't extend much beyond the very core conservative base of the party.
Have you seen any evidence that voters are looking into those sort of long-term strategies, whether or not a candidate has staying power or the ability to beat, if they're a conservative voter, if this candidate has the ability to beat the Democratic nominee? Are voters concerned about that at this point?
I mean, some voters surely are. I mean, I've talked to some on the campaign trail. You know, I was in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago and was talking to some Marco Rubio supporters who say, you know, I like them both, but Rubio actually might win. I think, though, that in some of the early states, I mean, in Iowa in particular, I think voters like to vote their heart, you know, and not be too calculating about it. And they might say, well, I don't care whether he can win the general election. He's the man that I identify with the most. But there are plenty of voters who, in choosing among this big field, I mean, there's a lot to choose from, think about electability as a very important feature because they don't want to just cast a vote symbolically. They want to beat Hillary Clinton.
Right, exactly. Well, the Iowa caucus is February 1st. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. Janet, thank you so much for being here.